name is Dr. Surabhi. Since you said governance is about planning and you are planning to go to Pakistan for the SCO, what are the kind of, and given the love-hate relationship that Pakistani media and the government has with you personally, what are the kind of questions and challenges and blaming, etc., are you anticipating and planning for? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Dr. Mukta. I actually have two questions for you, sir. Okay. Sir, when it comes to women-led governance, as per your vast experience, sir, what are some of the key aspects or practices that we can adopt from other countries, perhaps, that are doing better than us in this regard? Thank you, sir.
I have two brief questions. One, to ubiquitous, indefatigable EAM, and the other, as an erudite member of the cabinet. To EAM, I only refer about what you have been calling integration, one of the most difficult tasks that Sardar Patel accomplished. Mr. Minister, I just want to ask that we in SARC+1, for instance, 9 countries in close neighborhood, with India accounting for almost 80% of GDP of all the SARC+1, I mean SARC plus Myanmar. How is it that most of them seem to be reluctant to accept India as the real, natural, historical pivot for the region? And two, as member of the cabinet, some aspects which seem to be repugnant to even some of us, and also to some of the US legislators, for instance, the Rampals and others who seem to have special affinity for you, that the image of India is riled. I mean, in terms of the fringe elements being allowed to sully the image of the government. Now, as a member of the cabinet, whether you have ever felt the necessity to see whether something more positive can be done to get rid of this particular image. Thank you.
Let me start with the first question. Yes, I am scheduled to go to Pakistan in the middle of this month, and that is for a meeting of the SCO, SCO heads of government. Normally, Prime Minister goes to the higher level meeting, the heads of state, and one of us, it changes. Usually, one of the ministers goes for the heads of government meeting. So that's in line with the tradition. It so happens that the meeting is taking place in Pakistan because, like us, they are a relatively recent member. So your question, I think, as I understood it, was, am I planning for it? Of course I'm planning for it. I mean, in my business, you plan for everything which you're going to do and for a lot of things which you're not going to do and which could happen also. I mean, you plan for that as well. Expect there would be a lot of media interest because the very nature of the relationship is such, and I think we'll deal with it. But I do want to say it will be for a multilateral event. I mean, I'm not going there to discuss India-Pakistan relations. I'm going there to be a good member of the SCO. But since I'm a courteous and civil person, I will behave myself accordingly. So, on the women-led governance, look, I think we also have our own experiences, and so do other societies. When I look a lot of people in the room, their career has been dealing with administration, with development, with society very deeply. Mine was mostly dealing with foreign policy, but in the last 5 years, 5.5 years as a member of parliament, obviously I see very much more of you can say in a way the grassroots. And my own sense is that when there are a lot of things we can learn. There are a lot of things where we ourselves are an example. And certainly in the case of women-led development, in fact in the G20, we were the people who really pushed this idea that, this is not just about closing gender gaps, because that's almost like women will continuously stay behind and you're going to play catch up and, that's where it ends. I mean, there are many areas where, after all, in many ways, they are a natural pivot of families. And there are areas where their contribution and their role is very different, and it's not something which is replaceable by men. So I do think it's a very active subject to engage the world. But other than that, part of what I would say we are trying to do in foreign policy is foreign policy. Many countries have used foreign policy in a very focused manner to get the best things out of the world. It could be investment, it could be trade, it could be technology, but a lot of it is about best practices. How does some other country do this better or different, or in some manner is there something we can learn? And I think that's an attitude I would say we should encourage, and certainly through foreign policy we are trying to do that. On the integration issue, at the moment, SARC is not moving forward. We have not had a meeting of SARC for a very simple reason, that there is one member of SARC who is practicing cross-border terrorism, at least against one more member of SARC, maybe more. Now, when if you're all sitting together and cooperating, and at the same time, this kind of terrorism goes on so openly, it actually poses a challenge for us. That do you ignore it and go ahead, and in which case you are normalizing it, you are accepting that this is a legitimate tool of statecraft. And I think at some point we came to the decision that we should not do this. That terrorism is something which is unacceptable, and if despite a global view of it, if one of our neighbors continues to do it, then there must be a cost to them. It cannot be business as usual in the SARC. And that is the reason why actually SARC meetings have not happened in recent years. But I want to make an equally important point. Because SARC has not happened doesn't mean regional activities have stopped. In fact, I would argue that the last 5 or 6 years, we have seen far more regional integration in the Indian subcontinent than we have seen since the partition of India. That if you look today with Bangladesh, with Nepal, with Bhutan, with Myanmar, with Sri Lanka, where I came, you have railway lines being restored, you have roads being rebuilt, you have electricity grids being built, countries export and import power, you have fuel lines. Our refineries today give fuel to Nepal and to Bangladesh. You have ferries, you have, fertilizer supplies. So, and if you look, medical visas, the way our hospitals are linked. So I actually would say that what is happening in the neighborhood, and it's happening because we are espousing this policy called neighborhood first. Neighborhood first means we are the biggest country. We must put in the maximum resources. We should not look to say, are they doing something equal to us? Because they are smaller. They will not be in a position to necessarily reciprocate. So we need to take that as our primary responsibility and push that. I didn't entirely understand the second part of your question, but if I got it right, you are saying that sometimes people say things which are awkward. and how do you deal with that? That's how I understood it. So if I understood it right, I mean, in democratic politics or, in politics, many things are said. I mean, in diplomacy, all things are handled.
मैं दीपक सिंघल हूं साहब। मैं उत्तर प्रदेश में चीफ सेक्रेटरी था प्रभात कौर का बहुत जूनियर कुलीग हूं। मैं सिर्फ एक विषय आपके संज्ञान के लिए रखना चाहता था कि हम लोग पिछले 1.5 वर्ष से एक नया अध्याय जीवन का 50 प्रोफेसर्स, वाइस चांसलर्स और दुनिया के 60 देशों की यात्रा करके भारतीय संस्कृति के माध्यम से दुनिया की समस्याओं का समाधान, इस पे काफी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन किया है। मेरा जो अपना अनुभव रहा, क्योंकि हमारे सब कुलीग्स ही हैं, एम्बेसी में भी, फॉरेन सेक्रेटरीज भी रहे हैं, कि हमारे जो कन्फ्यूशियस सेंटर चाइना ने खोले हैं, इस तरह के अगर एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल पोजीशन, सिंस यू आर एन एमईए टुडे सर, दैट इफ यू हैव इंस्टीट्यूशनल अरेंजमेंट्स with embassies emerging as a parallel Confucius centers of not Confucius exactly, but हमारी ज्ञान परंपरा और ध्यान परंपरा की जितनी परंपरा है। मैं एक छोटा सा लास्ट एग्जांपल दे खत्म करूं। ओडिंगा रेला साहब मिला जब केनिया में, उनकी डॉटर को आईसाइट कंप्लीट ब्लाइंड थी और केरला में आके ठीक हो गई, दुनिया ठीक नहीं कर पाई, पीएम साहब बुलाते भी हैं। तो इन सब चीजों को एग्जाम्पल लेके अगर ये हमारी फॉरेन सर्विस का रीओरिएंटेशन एक बार सभी लोग जिन्होंने इकट्ठा किया सामान, उसके मीटिंग होके उनके सामने रखा जा सके, शायद देश के लिए भला होगा। ये चीज आपके सामने सुझाव के लिए रखना चाह रहा हूं।
Sir, I am Shivam, research scholar at University of Delhi. Sir, my question is based on historical perspective. Sir, is there any real or big difference between Atal Bihari Vajpayee's good governance and Sardar Patel's good governance on Kashmir's issue? Like we can see fraternity, integration in both leader or something different perspective we can gather it. Thank you, sir.
Sir, this side. Sir, my question is regarding UN, the way Israel, Gaza and things are in bad shape about international affair, and some people propose that it's a failure of UN, and there are some chances of proposal to be for India to be a member of Permanent Security Council, and some people, academic, have proposed that UK should cede its membership in favor of India, and second option is there should be 7 members with veto power, or next 7 members without veto power. The third is as regular 7 members to be regularly elected for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. So why not to be assertive about this UN Security?
मैं आपको जवाब दूं।
Thank you, sir.
So my name is Soumya Sood. Hello, my name is Soumya Sood. I'm closely working in international relations. Given the history of modern war, we have seen that countries that remain on a neutral stand benefit the most out of war situations. So the situation that is currently proceeding in the Middle Eastern countries, what do you think the opportunities and threats could arrive to India?
Hello. Sir, I want your views on setting up of a efficiency commission to improve our governance. Is it possible or being considered by you?
Okay. I will end finally since.
And very short. I don't know whether it's really appropriate, but I think in today's time it is, given the fact that it's the Sardar Patel lecture. I'm Sabina and Najit. We've all read a lot about Sardar Patel. In his nationalism, would you consider that he would have envisaged a Hindu Rashtra?
लेट मी स्टार्ट। आपका जो पहला सवाल जो था, देखिए हमारे यहाँ आजकल हर राजदूतावास में, हर उच्चायुक्त में एक कल्चरल सेंटर है। ये पिछले दशक में ये परिवर्तन आया है और हर जगह जो है हमारे यहाँ से प्रयास तो जरूर होता है कि कम से कम योगा का टीचिंग, जो अगर कोई भाषा है, हिंदी, संस्कृत, तमिल, जो भी है, और जो हमारे नृत्य जो हैं, डांस वगैरह जो हैं, इनकी टीचिंग हो। अब इसके अलावा कुछ सेंटर्स हैं जहाँ या तो हमारी समुदाय बड़ी है या वहाँ भारत के बारे में रुचि इतनी ज़्यादा है कि हमने छोटे सेंटर को और बड़ा बनाया है। जैसे आप ये नॉर्मली कुछ रूस जैसे जगह या यूके है या कुछ और हैं ऐसे। अब इसमें जो नया इनिशिएटिव जो आया है, जो प्रधानमंत्री ने हम लोगों को ये निर्देश दिया है कि हम तिरुवल्लुवर सेंटर जो है दुनिया में स्थापित करें। तो मुझे लगता है कि पहला सेंटर कुछ ही दिनों में कहीं एक देश में हम जरूर इसको स्थापित करेंगे। तो जो आप कह रहे हैं, मैं जरूर मानता हूं कि आजकल दुनिया में भारत के बारे में जिज्ञासा ज़्यादा है और इंटरनेशनल डे, योग दिवस के बाद जो है लोगों के मन में है कि भारत में कुछ ऐसी, जैसे आपने कहा कि कुछ ज्ञान है, कुछ ध्यान है, कि कुछ सीखने को है। तो ये है जरूर, और हम जरूर इसको हम मानते भी हैं। अब इसको हम कैसे अपनी ओर से इसको कैसे आगे बढ़ाएं, ये जरूर हमारे मन में है। और मुझे लगता है जो ICCR जो हमारे लिए एक किस्म से व्यवस्था है ये करने के लिए, ये ICCR एक अपने आप को एक किस्म से मॉडर्नाइज कर रही है इस चुनौती को आगे ले जाने के लिए। जो दूसरा सवाल जो है आपका, जो योर क्वेश्चन ऑन गुड गवर्नेंस, people live in different times, you know. During Sardar Patel's time, we had just come out of the partition. You know, the country was really traumatized because when partition happened, nobody really saw what it would mean on the ground, the bloodshed that happened, and the disruption that happened. Now, if you look at Atalji's time, what had happened at that time was that the original socialist model had created a crisis in 1991. We were rebuilding after that. Many decisions had been put up. So I would say Atalji in many ways would be particularly remembered because one, he took the long delayed decision on nuclear, exercising the nuclear option. But what people appreciate less, he was a big economic reformer. That if you look at the economic numbers of that period, they're really very, very impressive numbers. So there would be comparisons, there would be changes during, even in Jammu and Kashmir, which was your particular focus, the situation in 1950, situation in 1998, 99, and situation today in 2024 is very different. So my sense is, every Prime Minister tries to improve governance. After all, that is part of the responsibility you have. Some have a greater focus, a greater, I would say, grip, a stronger sense. I mean, if you look at the present Prime Minister, the kind of emphasis which he puts on training, and the kind of feedback mechanisms that we have, the degree of rigor, as someone who started many years ago, I mean, the Prime Minister, when I started my career, was Morarji Desai. So when I look from there to today, honestly, the rigor and the workload and the expectation of people in government has gone up. And I think in many ways the kind of delivery expectation in society, people are not willing to wait the way they would have waited 10 or 20 years ago. Society has become impatient in this country. And rightly so in many respects. Your question, जो आपका जो था UN के बारे में, look, we are not waiting for the failure of UN to reform UN. The UN needs to be reformed because it is 80 years old. And when UN was formed, there were 51 members and all 51 were not free. We were one of the founding members. Today there are 193 members. So imagine if something has changed from 51 to 193. How can the management remain the same? It doesn't make any sense. So, and if you look at the major, the economic hierarchy, that has also changed. So, people will come up with this idea that inko nikalo, inko dalo. See, nobody will willingly yield their position. That's the reality. But there is a negotiation going on called the Intergovernmental Negotiation, IGN process. The pressures within the UN. We just had a Summit of the Future. So in the Summit of the Future, there was a much greater sense that, look, we have to do something today about changing the UN. So I think the pressures will go, and at some stage it will grow to a point where it will be impossible for the people who are currently trying to stop it from continually stopping it. The question you had on opportunities in the Middle East. See, the Middle East is not opportunity. Middle East is a cause of great concern, deep worry. The conflict is widening. What we saw as a terrorist attack, then the response, then we saw what happened in Gaza, and now you're seeing it in, Lebanon, exchange of between Israel and Iran, the Houthis firing on the Red Sea. This is actually costing us. It's not that somebody is neutral and you benefit. Shipping rates have gone up, insurance rates have gone up, foreign trade is being affected, oil prices have gone up. Day before yesterday, the markets tanked after the Iranian missile attack. So, conflicts can be opportunistically used. I don't deny that. But I think in a globalized world which is so tight, conflict anywhere actually creates problems everywhere. And, some supply of some kind will get affected by this. So I would say, honestly today, whether it is the conflict in Ukraine or the conflict in the Middle East, West Asia, these are big factors of instability, big factors of concern. I think the entire world, including us, we are worried about it, and we are trying to see at least where we can make a difference and do what we can. On the efficiency side, in this government actually there is, in a sense, a commission which has looked at making bureaucracy more competitive, making it more sharp in a way. There is something called Mission Karm Yogi. The whole idea is that it should not, the bureaucracy should not be a escalator. That, there should be training, there should be performance evaluation, there should be a kind of a right fit for the right job. I think all of that is happening, and I would say, having spent most of my working life in the bureaucracy, I can see today, and in our case, the service which I was a member of, it's in a sense a one service ministry. So you have the opportunity of coming back to it again and again and looking at people in the same environment. I can see changes very frankly for the better. I think people are far more competitive and, in a sense, far more willing to do things. And to me, that's a source of great encouragement. So the last question, it's a very interesting question because in the late 40s and early 50s, there were big issues, and some of them pertain to Sardar Patel, some of them, to people like Rajendra Prasad. Issues like, for example, RSS did sterling work during the partition. Now, there were people who, for political reasons, didn't want to recognize it. Now, I think Sardar Patel was a very culturally, he had, from what I understand, I've not just read the official side of it, I've also read the associated personal accounts of people who worked with him. My own grandparents were in the government at that time. I've sort of had talked to him. I think at that time a lot of people felt that, look, it's one thing to respect, all religions should be respected. But respect for religions does not mean that your own religion needed to be suppressed or played down. And that, unfortunately, because of the ideologies of the day, was the direction in which it went. And I think he would have been very uncomfortable with the fact that somewhere people were almost defensive about being a Hindu. My guess is it would have troubled. And, if you look thereafter at issues like the, inaugurating the Somnath temple, which became a major political issue at that time. So it's hypothetical, but I would say, here was a person with beliefs, faiths, culture, tradition, who was very comfortable in his own skin.